Well, good morning, good people. Mark Holmes here, and as always, I want to say thank you all for watching, commenting, subscribing, and being part of the Joe Blue Sports Report. Without you guys, as well as you ladies, you know that this literally does not work. Today is our last day. Tomorrow we actually are back in Miami. Vacation is over, back to life, back to reality. It has been an incredible trip, and it has definitely recharged my batteries, and it's got me focused in on the Dallas Cowboys, who are in day number 3 of their mini camp slash mandatory OTA'S. Um, this is one of the few chances that the team actually has to get together to really get everything put in place. Um, Putting in, of course, all the plays for the season and stuff, where training camp is more of a review of what you did in OTAs. And this is where it's important to have the players in place now before the start of training camp, because it gives you a little bit more of an edge. It gives you time to go ahead and learn the plays, have time to really dissect them, and really understand the philosophy and what the team is doing, that when you hit training camp, you hit the ground running. So it's important to get as many guys healthy as possible going in here. Now, the Cowboys are using this mini camp as experimenting time or teaching time. A lot of times we make a lot of focus in on exactly what happens on every single play, that, oh my God, excuse me, not Shoemaker, um, Peyton Hendershot ended up tipping up a pass in the end zone, and it ended up being an interception. So that means it's a foreshadowing of what's going to happen during the season. No, you're going to try a lot of things that are different. You're going to throw, as they say, with lime plaster. You're going to throw shit on the wall and see what sticks. And with lime plaster, if it doesn't stick to the walls, then you didn't mix it right. So you're going to find some things and say, that formula doesn't work. So we need to go back and try some different things. And that's what you do right now. Yesterday practice ended with Brandon Cooks deep, and I mean deep. We're talking about Dak Prescott just launching that sucker and going all the way. And you see the difference of having a speed guy is going to make for this offense. And we've had guys that have already started to make heads turn that have kind of turned the other way last year. And guys like Semi Fioco and Jalen Tolbert is actually having an incredible season. And even Jabril Cox. Some of these guys were injured, like Jabril Cox coming back last year from an ACL. And a lot of times we hear that a person is healthy and back, and we automatically think that they are 100% ready to go. But that's just not the case with the ACL, as we've seen, because we know that Michael Gallup was healthy and on the field, but he was not 100%. And so there is time it takes. That's where my worry comes in with Terrence Steele, because he's not going to be ready, they think, for training camp, coming back for an ACL. So is this going to be kind of another one of those seasons like we had last year with Michael Gallup? Excuse me. Or will he be able to play like he almost was a Pro Bowler before going down last year? These are things that are very, very significant and real questions. But the Cowboys are trying to have the best players on the field. One of the problems we had last year was actually left guard. Jason Peters played there for a while. The governor, Connor McGovern, played there sometime. And they just never really got that road grader that they wanted. Jason Peters was too old. Connor McGovern just never lived up to the expectation of where he was drafted. So the Cowboys are trying to, with Matt Lewinsky, who is a young guy, who's been looking pretty good, they are experimenting now, putting Tyron Smith back at his natural left and having Tyler Smith playing guard. What they've been doing previous to that was having Tyron Smith playing right tackle. The idea, the concept is if it ends up being, left guard is our problem, we can shift with Tyler Smith going there and Tyron Smith outside. If it ends up being that Terrence Steele isn't ready, then you got Tyron Smith who can play right. You got Tyler Smith that can play tackle. And these are things that they're trying to eliminate when you lose a player, that we're just going straight to the backup for that position, who may not be the next best backup player on the field. So they're trying to develop interchangeable players on that line. You laugh at that.
Oh, that's the premise of Ted Lasso this season.
Was it? Unfortunately, I like the show, but me and my wife are two different individuals. Um, as my mom would say, you're like a chinch on a hot griddle. I still to this day, after hearing that for 50 years, don't know what a chinch is. But apparently, he doesn't hold still on a griddle. And it's hard for me to sit down and watch more than a couple shows. My wife, she's a marathoner. When a new show comes, or when the show comes out and they got all of them, I just can't do it. I go, after two shows, I'm like, okay, I got to move and go do something, and I'll come back. I'll come back, and we're on another season, so I just get lost. So the premise was having players that could interchange. Wasn't it that? Didn't they have that whole thing where? I guess that might have been the episode that I saw where they were kind of confused when they were trying to do it because the defensive guys were becoming offensive guys and back. Okay, yeah. So that was okay. So maybe the Cowboys got their playbook from Ted Lasso. Is that what you're saying? I think that's what you're saying.
It's similar concept.
But that's what you have to be able to do because you can't. It's hard to say I've got a starting center and a backup center. I've got a starting right guard and then I got a backup right guard. I got it. There's just not enough pie to go around to have basically 10 great players on the position. You're gonna have some guys that are kind of like Chaz Green. So that is a great plan. Then the Cowboys, as Stephen Jones says, player acquisition is a 365-day-a-year job, and we're always looking to get better. And I should go ahead and say, put in thought bubble, as long as it doesn't cost too much money. Because we know Stephen Jones, of course, a.k.a. Catboy last year, doesn't like to spend too much. Okay, he doesn't. He ought to be on a, he don't overpay for this muffler or something commercial. But we did sign Ben Bagu, former Dallas native. Okay, grew up about 6 miles away from the Star. Had an incredible high school career and things. Drafted in the second round by the Indianapolis Colts. 6'3", 250 pounds. Has played outside linebacker, edge rusher, and things. And only has 2.5 sacks to his career. The thought is, of course, you bring in guys that you think fit your system and what you do, and sometimes you end up finding a diamond in the rough. It could be that the Colts defense wasn't suited to him. Could be that the coaching that was being given to him wasn't the best of coaching for his set of skills. Now, we have the Zen Master in Dan Quinn, who has been incredible at taking guys and getting the most out of them. Micah Parsons has exceeded all expectations of where he was drafted and his ability and things in just 2 seasons. And you look at the Cowboys across the board of what they've been able to do. Taking a guy like Dorrance Armstrong, who most people laughed when Catboy said, he's right there with Randy Gregory. Everybody said, man, that guy, are you kidding me, Catboy? Are you serious? That he had a hell of a lot better season last year than Randy Gregory. In fact, he had a better season last year than any season that Randy Gregory. And, he didn't pass the Dutchie from the left or the right. He didn't pass the Dutchie from the left or the right. So there were no suspensions, of course, for Dorrance Armstrong. So maybe, just maybe, they're not quite as bad as we think. Now, we are in port here, okay? We're going to spend the day out on the beach, okay? We're going to be on the beach. We're going to get in the sand, the sun, and sunscreen. We got sunscreen. I'm not trying to go back looking like a lobster. We got to make sure, honey, because, we forget sunscreen. But anyway, sorry, I digress. This morning, it was interesting because I caught a bit of Get Up, and they were talking about this whole thing of Kellen Moore, that the Cowboys, they screwed up. Why would you get rid of Kellen Moore? Kellen Moore was was the only thing holding together. And Mike McCarthy, well, he's just ass, so to speak. And it's funny to me that we went through last year losing 2 starting offensive linemen, 2 critical wide receivers, and we actually did some good things. This year, the offensive line, we're not relying on a 40-year-old Jason Peters. At the moment, Tyron Smith is healthy. We've got a speedster wide receiver in Brandon Cooks. We have a healthy Michael Gallup. We have added a scat back in Deuce Vaughn. We've added a younger running back in Ronald Jones. Me and Ronald Jones. We've added Ronald Jones to the mix, and Tony Pollard says he's faster coming back from the injury. But they somehow say that the Cowboys offense, and Dak is recovered from a broken thumb. But yet somehow they keep, kind of throwing shadow and casting down against the Cowboys. And I was listening to Get Up, and there's so many mistakes that are literally in what they're saying in this. But and when you get Teddy Bruschi on your side, that's when you kind of say, wow, things are really weird.
Well, this season, head coach Mike McCarthy's calling offensive plays. Here's Cowboy guard Zach Martin on what McCarthy brings as a play caller.
Oops, sorry. I messed that up. Let's try that again. That's what happens when you go on vacation.
Receptions in just 12 games. Well, this season, head coach Mike McCarthy's calling offensive plays. Here's Cowboy guard Zach Martin on what McCarthy brings as a play caller.
What does McCarthy bring?
It's been good having Mike in there. I think he's going to bring an edge to our offense. I think, we're still going to run the football. That's going to be a big part of what we're doing. But I think just the communications and little details that we've added this year are going to allow everyone to be on the same page when we're out there running plays.
Same page.
All right, that's what Zach Martin thinks. Teddy, what do you think? Dak, Cowboy offense in the better or worse spot, considering the offseason moves and McCarthy now calling plays?
I would say it's in a better spot, guys. And for one, I think the major offseason move is the play calling going away from Kellen Moore, who's departed, and now it's McCarthy who's doing it. It's just, you can bring up numbers all you want in terms of how successful they were offensively, but sometimes numbers don't correlate with winning football games. And so now McCarthy blends his head coaching perspective of being aware of both sides of the ball, where his best players are on the team, and how his offensive play calling affects winning football games. I think that's a huge change in terms of how I watch the Dallas Cowboy offense. In terms of watching it before, is how many passing yards can Dak Prescott put up, things like that. Now it's more like, how does this work towards a complementary role for offense, defense, and special teams to winning football games? So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing now, is if it meshes all together. Now, there's a great defense, and then there's a great offense, but they never seem to be working together.
Bill, give me your take.
Well, I'm going to bring up some of those numbers and talk about how, the Cowboys were running pretty well.
Who's this guy?
Kellen Moore as offensive coordinator. They were the third best offense in football.
Who is this guy?
Points scored per game over the past couple of seasons. And I think if you want to say, the defense wasn't meshing, I could see that. I could see them wanting to play a little slower on offense. But the thing I keep coming back to is the number one offense in football over the past couple of years in points scored per game, who play very fast, who throw the ball more than anybody else, are the Kansas City Chiefs.
Any good?
They've done okay for themselves over that run. So I understand wanting to mesh things. I understand adding Brandon Cooks. I think that's a good move for the Cowboys. But in the big picture, I think the Cowboys are worse off because I don't think they're going to be as effective on offense.
Danny, you heard Teddy. He thinks they're going to be more complimentary football related there. He likes
how are you going to be worse?
Going to be calling plays that flies in the face of what we've been talking about the past couple of days.
Yeah, look, I obviously, when Teddy played the game, he knows what he's talking about. Like, I'm looking at it saying they've won 12 games each of the last 2 years, and they've scored as many points as anybody but the Chiefs, right? So, like, I don't know what was wrong with scoring so many.
But where has it gotten you? And as a Cowboys fan, I'm tired of scoring all these points and then getting booted out in the first round of the playoffs.
You win in 12 games a year. Like, all right, so you tell me because of the way Kellen Moore ran his offense, they couldn't win a playoff game? Like, is that what we're led to believe?
Let's stop right there for a second. That they couldn't win a playoff game. I could have sworn they finally beat the GOAT, Tom Brady, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this year. I believe that's what happened. I believe the guy who's on the cover of Madden this year, they went as far as that team, and that team was predicted to be a Super Bowl contender. And my quarterback broke his thumb. My team ended up getting rid of, 2 starting offensive linemen and 2 starting receivers. But go on.
That seems to be the way the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy have set this up. That's the premise. And if he's right, great. Good job, man. They might be right. All we can do is sit here and say what it looks like from the outside. A year ago, what's Bill Belichick doing with the offense? Is that going to work? We thought no, and it didn't. There are plenty of cases where the team is right and we're not. But in this case, scoring points helps you win football games, and they were really, really good at it under Kellen Moore. To change that, I think, raises a red flag until we see that he's right and we're wrong.
Teddy, put a button on this.
Okay, yeah. All I'm trying to say is this, guys. When you only have one gear, okay, just one gear, foot on the gas, score points, put up numbers, points, and all that. You forget about the other side of the ball when it comes to a game where I know to win this game all I need's 20. Because this is a quality football team we're playing. And our defense on the other side of that football has one of the best players in the entire league, and that's Micah Parsons. And that's what we need to play.
That's it. Okay, so in essence, he's saying, listen, sometimes you got to make sure you take care of the football. You're playing against better competition in the playoffs. You may be able to blow out some of the teams and score a ton of points in some situations, But it's crunch time. And some guys, when it comes to crunch time, when the pressure's really on, some people rise to the occasion. Others wilt. And I still believe that Kellen Moore, much from that Jason Garrett tree, when it comes to crunch time, their play calling wilts. Now, of course, the Dak Prescott haters out there will tell me I'm just an idiot and you're just making excuses for him. That's fine. You guys can think what you want to think and say what you want to think. I appreciate the views as well as the comments because you're helping out me with the algorithm. But the reality is football is tough. And only one team makes it all the way. And as we throw shade on Dak Prescott for what the Cowboys did, nobody seems to throw any on Buffalo, which is what the Cowboys did last year. But, they were the Super Bowl favorite last year, weren't they? I'm Mark Holmes, and, I'm going to go out here and enjoy some sun and sand on the beach. And hopefully, keep your fingers crossed, nobody gets hurt in practice. Yesterday was a scare with CeeDee Lamb, and we want to get to training camp into the season healthy. Peace.